The mourning ritual never changed across 3,000 years of conquest. Commander Roth dragged his massive claws across the ceremonial stone, sharpening them while reciting the names of fallen enemies. Each scrape echoed through the war chamber, like thunder. Today felt different, though. Today brought news of something called humans. Roth towered over the holographic display showing star charts of the Outer Rim territories. His four muscular arms moved with practiced ease, manipulating data streams, while his secondary hearts pumped battle-ready blood through veins thick as cables. The Korthak Empire had swept across the galaxy like wildfire, consuming every civilization in their path. No species had ever mounted serious resistance against their superior biology and living weapons. The intelligence report made him laugh, a sound like grinding metal. Humans stood barely half his height, possessed fragile skin that tore easily and required constant atmospheric support to survive. Their ships were crude metal constructions held together with primitive technology. Most amusing of all, they had only one heart. How could such weak creatures even function in space combat? "Sir, the High Command requests immediate deployment." "To human space," announced his aide, a younger Korthak whose chitin still gleamed with the bright colors of inexperience. "They estimate complete subjugation within 72 hours. Roth nodded approvingly. Another quick campaign would add to his already legendary record. The 47th Battle Group had never required more than a week to crush any resistance. These humans would likely surrender the moment they witnessed Korthak military superiority. Most intelligent species did. The journey to human territory took 14 standard days. Roth spent the time reviewing tactical data and preparing his warriors for what should be routine cleanup operations. Human weapons appeared laughably primitive compared to Korthak bioartillery. Their defensive positions looked hastily constructed and poorly planned. Everything suggested another effortless victory. New Perth Colony appeared on their sensors like a small, vulnerable jewel hanging in the void. The settlement consisted of basic habitat domes, mining facilities, and a handful of converted cargo, vessels serving as patrol craft. Roth counted perhaps 50,000 humans scattered across the planet's surface. His battle group alone carried twice that number in seasoned warriors. He opened communication channels, expecting immediate surrender negotiations. Instead, a human voice responded with words that puzzled him completely. "This is Governor Miller of New Perth Colony. We will not surrender our home. We will fight you with everything we have." "Fight? With what?" Roth examined the tactical displays again, searching for hidden weapons or reinforcements. He found nothing beyond the pathetic collection of mining equipment and civilian vessels. Perhaps these humans simply didn't understand what they faced. "I am Commander Roth of the Korthak Empire. You cannot possibly resist us. Surrender now, and your deaths will be swift. Then you'll have to take our world by force." The channel closed. Roth stared at the communication panel in genuine confusion. In 3 millennia of conquest, no prey species had ever refused surrender when faced with impossible odds. They always chose survival over meaningless gestures of defiance. The assault began at dawn, New Perth time. Korthak dropships descended like falling stars, disgorging thousands of warriors equipped with bioweapons that could level entire city blocks. Roth expected the human settlement to fall within hours. Instead, he encountered something unprecedented. The humans fought back. They had turned their mining lasers into crude but effective artillery pieces. Construction vehicles became improvised tanks, their industrial armor welded with additional plating and fitted with explosive charges. Most remarkably, civilian humans fought alongside whatever military forces they possessed, using everything, from kitchen knives to farming tools as weapons. The battle raged for 3 full days. Roth's warriors, trained for swift, overwhelming victories, found themselves bogged down in house-to-house fighting against an enemy that refused to break. Human defenders would hold positions until the last moment, then fall back to prepared, secondary positions. They coordinated their movements with a precision that suggested extensive military training, yet Roth knew most of these people were simple colonists. What disturbed him most was their motivation. Korthak warriors fought for glory, conquest, and the strength of the empire. These humans seemed to fight for something else entirely. He intercepted communications between human units and heard words like family, home, and future. They weren't trying to win military victory. They were trying to protect something they valued more than their own lives. On the fourth day, Korthak numbers finally overwhelmed human resistance. Roth's warriors broke through the final defensive perimeter and swept into the colony's residential areas. He expected to find cowering civilians begging for mercy. Instead, he found something that shook him to his core. Human families had barricaded themselves into their homes, but not to hide. They had prepared final defensive positions, ready to fight to protect their children, even though they knew death was certain. Parents stood guard over younglings who couldn't possibly understand the danger, yet showed no fear because their protectors remained strong. Roth personally led the assault on the colony's main shelter. When his warriors breached the entrance, they found Governor Miller standing alone in the corridor, holding nothing but a simple projectile weapon. The human looked directly at Roth without flinching, despite facing a creature who could tear him apart with minimal effort. "My people are evacuated. You want this colony? You've got it. But you'll never understand what you've really taken." Miller fired his pathetic weapon until it ran empty, then continued fighting with bare hands until Roth's claws finally ended his resistance. As the human died, Roth felt something he had never experienced in 3,000 years of conquest. Not satisfaction or triumph, but a strange, hollow sensation he couldn't identify. The colony was theirs, but victory felt different this time. His warriors reported unusual casualty rates and equipment losses. More troubling, they spoke of human courage with something approaching respect. Korthak warriors never respected prey species. That night, while his troops celebrated another successful conquest, Roth found himself reviewing battle recordings. He watched human defenders again and again, trying to understand what made them fight so desperately for a doomed cause. They had known they couldn't win. They had known they would die. Yet they fought anyway. Not for glory or conquest, but simply to protect others. For the first time in his military career, Commander Roth felt uncertain about the righteousness of Korthak expansion. These humans had shown him something his warrior culture had never taught him to recognize. They had shown him love. The implications of that realization would haunt him through the battles yet to come. 3 months after New Perth, Roth still couldn't shake the memory of Governor Miller's final stand. The human's words echoed in his mind during quiet moments between battles. Sleep brought dreams of families huddled together, choosing death over surrender, to protect something the Korthak language had no proper word for. Now his battle group approached the Centauri defense line, humanity's last major stronghold before Earth itself. Intelligence reports showed a substantial human fleet, waiting in formation around the system's outer planets. Unlike the desperate colonists of New Perth, these would be trained military forces with proper equipment and battle experience. Admiral Torres commanded the human fleet from her flagship, a massive dreadnought called Freedom's Dawn. Roth studied her service record with grudging interest. She had risen through human ranks not through conquest or personal combat, but through something humans called leadership. Her tactical victories relied on coordination between multiple units rather than individual warrior prowess. The first engagement began when Roth scouts encountered human patrol vessels near the system's edge. What should have been a routine sweep became something else entirely. The human ships retreated in perfect formation, drawing Korthak forces deeper into the system while transmitting constant streams of tactical data to their main fleet. "They're using their scouts as sensors," observed his tactical officer. "Each ship shares targeting information with every other vessel in their fleet. Roth found this concept fascinating. Korthak warriors fought as individuals, each seeking personal glory in battle. These humans seemed to operate like a single organism with many parts, each component serving the whole, rather than competing for dominance. The main battle began at dawn on the fourth day. Human ships emerged from behind planetary cover in tight formations, their movements synchronized with mechanical precision. They lacked the raw firepower of Korthak bioships, but they used their numbers and coordination to create concentrated fire patterns that overwhelmed individual targets. More disturbing was their tactical flexibility. When Roth adapted his strategy to counter their formations, the humans immediately shifted to different approaches. They seemed to learn from each engagement, modifying their tactics in real time based on observed Korthak responses. No prey species had ever shown such adaptability under pressure. The battle raged for weeks. Korthak forces, trained for swift, decisive victories, found themselves locked in a grinding war of attrition. Human reinforcements arrived regularly, not as fresh military units, but as civilian volunteers flying converted cargo haulers and mining vessels. Somehow, these improvised warships integrated seamlessly into human battle lines, adding their firepower to coordinated assault patterns. Roth watched in amazement as human crews performed maneuvers that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They used damaged ships as guided missiles, ramming Korthak vessels at critical moments. Small human fighters would sacrifice themselves to position larger ships for devastating attack runs. Most shocking of all, these weren't acts of desperate fanaticism, but calculated tactical decisions made with cold military precision. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 3 damaged human vessels," reported his communications officer. Roth expected standard military surrender protocols. Instead, he heard something unprecedented. The human commanders weren't surrendering to save their own lives. They were offering to sacrifice their ships in exchange for safe passage for civilian evacuation vessels. They wanted to trade their deaths for the lives of non-combatants they had never met. He granted the requests, partly from curiosity and partly from something he couldn't name. As the human ships exploded in brilliant flares of light, he realized these creatures possessed a form of courage his warrior culture had never imagined. They weren't fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting for the right of others to exist freely. The turning point came during the siege of Centauri Station, humanity's main command center in the system. Korthak forces had surrounded the massive space station, cutting off all supply lines and communications. Victory seemed certain within days. Instead, they discovered that humans had converted the entire station into a fortress. Every corridor had become a kill zone. Every compartment held defensive positions. Civilian technicians fought alongside. Military personnel using maintenance tools as weapons and technical knowledge as tactical advantages. Most remarkably, the humans had learned to fight Korthak biology. They released clouds of engineered chemicals that disrupted Korthak breathing systems. They used sonic weapons tuned to frequencies that caused pain to Korthak hearing organs. They had studied their enemies and adapted their defenses accordingly. The final assault on the station's command center took 12 hours of brutal close-quarters combat. When Roth's warriors finally breached the last defensive barrier, they found Admiral Torres still at her command post, coordinating evacuation efforts for wounded personnel while enemy forces surrounded her position. She looked up at Roth without fear, her hands still working at her control console. "My people are clear. The station is yours, Commander, but this war is far from over. Your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses have fallen. How can you speak of continuing this futile resistance?" Torres smiled, an expression that somehow conveyed both sadness and determination. "Because you still don't understand what you're fighting. You see ships and weapons and tactics. We fight for something you can't destroy with all your military might." Her final transmission went out on all frequencies as Korthak warriors closed in around her. This is Admiral Torres to all human forces. The Centauri line has fallen, but our mission continues. Tell everyone back home that we bought them time. Tell them we proved that freedom is worth any sacrifice. The transmission ended when Roth's claws found their mark. But as Torres died, she looked directly into his eyes and whispered words that would haunt him forever. Your people are warriors, Commander, but we fight for something greater than war. As his forces secured the conquered station, Roth found himself staring at the tactical displays showing human casualty reports. The numbers were staggering. Humanity had lost 60% of their military strength defending this single system. By any rational measure, they had suffered a devastating defeat. Yet somehow, it felt like the humans had won something important. They had proven they could make the mighty Korthak Empire pay a terrible price for every victory. More than that, they had shown that some things were worth dying for, even when death accomplished nothing but buying time for others. For the first time in his military career, Commander Roth questioned whether conquest was truly the highest form of strength. Sleep no longer came easily to Commander Roth. Between campaigns, he found himself studying captured human data files, trying to understand the species that had cost him more warriors in 2 battles than he had lost in the previous century of conquest. The more he learned, the more confused he became. Human records painted a picture of impossible contradictions. Their bodies were fragile, easily damaged by forces that would barely scratch Korthak chitin. They lived short lives, barely a tenth of a Korthak lifespan. Their homeworld was a gravity well trap that should have kept them planet-bound for millennia. Yet somehow, these weak creatures had spread across dozens of star systems and developed technology that challenged the Empire's supremacy. The puzzle deepened when he examined human innovation patterns. Faced with superior Korthak bioweapons, human engineers had studied captured samples and developed countermeasures within months. When Korthak tactics proved effective, human commanders adapted new strategies that negated traditional advantages. Most remarkably, humans seemed to become more creative under pressure, their rate of technological advancement accelerating as their situation grew more desperate. Sir, High Command has approved your request for extended deployment to Sol system, his aide announced. They want the human homeworld crushed before these creatures can develop more dangerous technologies. Roth nodded, though part of him wondered if destroying Earth would truly end human resistance. These creatures had shown an alarming ability to fight from unexpected positions using improvised resources. Perhaps eliminating their birth world would simply scatter them across the galaxy like seeds on the wind. The journey to Sol system took 6 weeks through hyperspace corridors clogged with refugee vessels fleeing the advancing Korthak fleet. Roth observed these evacuation efforts with professional interest. Most species abandoned their weakest members when faced with superior forces, but humans seemed determined to save everyone regardless of age, health, or social status. His battle group emerged from hyperspace to find something unprecedented waiting for them. The entire Sol system had been converted into a fortress. Every planet, moon, and asteroid had been equipped with weapons platforms. Vast clouds of automated defense. Drones swarmed between orbital installations like metallic insects. Most impressive of all, Earth itself bristled with planetary defense systems that could engage targets anywhere in the inner system. How did they accomplish this so quickly? Asked his tactical officer. Our intelligence reports showed minimal human military infrastructure in Sol system just months ago. Roth studied the sensor readings with growing amazement. Humans had somehow coordinated the efforts of billions of individuals to transform their entire star system into a weapon. Construction ships worked alongside military vessels. Civilian factories had been converted to produce military hardware. Even children contributed to the defense effort, operating communication networks and manufacturing supplies. The siege of Earth began with long-range bombardment from beyond the outer planets. Korthak bioships launched living missiles that could adapt to changing defensive patterns. Human response was immediate and overwhelming. Weapon platforms throughout the system fired in coordinated volleys, creating intersecting fields of destruction that eliminated entire waves of attackers. "They're using their whole system as a single weapon," Roth observed. "Every installation coordinates with every other defensive position." The pattern was familiar from previous engagements, but the scale was staggering. Humans had transformed their birth world into the ultimate expression of their collective fighting philosophy. Individual strength meant nothing here. Only the coordinated efforts of the entire species could mount such a defense. As Korthak forces pushed deeper into the system, they encountered new horrors. Human scientists had studied Korthak biology extensively, developing chemical weapons that targeted specific organs and biological processes. Clouds of engineered viruses drifted through space, invisible death that bypassed traditional armor and attacked from within. More disturbing were the psychological warfare tactics. Human transmissions filled communication channels with messages, aimed at individual Korthak warriors. They spoke of families waiting at home, of the futility of endless conquest, of alternative ways to find meaning beyond military victory. Some warriors began questioning their orders, wondering why they fought for an empire that offered nothing but perpetual war. The breakthrough came during the assault on Luna, Earth's primary moon. Korthak forces had surrounded a human medical facility treating wounded from both sides of the conflict. Standard military doctrine demanded its immediate destruction to prevent enemy forces from recovering their strength. Roth prepared to give the order, then hesitated. Through his ship's sensors, he could see human medical personnel working frantically to save lives. Some of the wounded were human soldiers, but others were captured Korthak warriors receiving the same care as enemy casualties. "Sir, the medical facility contains strategic intelligence and military personnel," his second-in-command reported. "Orders are to destroy it immediately." "They're healing our warriors," Roth said quietly. "Sir, look at the medical bay feeds. Those human doctors are treating wounded Korthak soldiers alongside their own people." His bridge crew fell silent as they observed the impossible scene. Human medical staff, working under constant threat of attack, had chosen to save the lives of creatures who had come to destroy their world. They asked for nothing in return except the chance to heal suffering wherever they found it. For the first time in 3 millennia of military service, Roth disobeyed a direct order from high command. He opened communication channels to the medical facility and transmitted safe passage coordinates. The hospital ship escaped under cover of Korthak protection, carrying wounded soldiers from both species to safety behind human lines. "Commander, High Command will demand an explanation for this action," his tactical officer warned. "Tell them the facility contained no strategic value," Roth replied, but he knew his superiors would see through such lies. More troubling, he realized he no longer cared about their approval. Word of the incident spread through Korthak military channels with surprising speed. Other commanders began reporting similar encounters with human compassion. Warriors spoke of enemy medics who treated Korthak wounds during brief ceasefires. Prisoners described human captors who provided food, medical care, and respectful treatment even to those who had killed their comrades. High Command responded with increasing demands for brutal tactics designed to crush human morale. Orders came to target civilian populations, destroy cultural sites, and eliminate prisoner exchange programs. Some commanders obeyed without question, but others began finding excuses to minimize civilian casualties. The Empire's perfect military machine was developing cracks, and humans were somehow responsible. They had introduced concepts that didn't exist in Korthak culture: mercy toward enemies, protection of the weak, sacrifice for abstract principles rather than personal glory. 3 months into the siege of Earth, Roth received new orders that changed everything. High Command had authorized deployment of planet-killer weapons against human worlds. Not for strategic advantage, but to make an example of the species that dared inspire doubt among Korthak warriors. As he read the authorization codes, Roth realized he faced a choice that would define not just his own future, but the future of both species. He could follow orders and help exterminate humanity, preserving the Empire's traditional dominance through overwhelming force. Or he could choose a different path, one inspired by the impossible courage of creatures who fought for something greater than conquest. The decision wasn't difficult. It was terrifying because it meant abandoning everything he had believed for 3,000 years. But as he thought of Governor Miller's final stand, Admiral Torres's sacrifice, and human medics healing Korthak wounds, Roth knew there was only one choice he could live with. He opened a secure channel to Earth's surface and began composing a message that would make him a traitor to his own species. But perhaps, he thought, being a traitor to the Empire was the first step toward becoming something better than a conqueror. The human Special Forces team struck during the darkest hour of the lunar cycle, when Korthak night vision would be compromised by Earth's reflected light. They moved through the maintenance tunnels of Geneva Station like shadows, avoiding detection, until they reached Roth's personal quarters in the command section. He woke to find 5 humans in black combat gear surrounding his sleep chamber. Weapons trained on vital points, despite knowing their projectile weapons could barely penetrate his natural armor. What surprised him wasn't their presence, but their restraint. Any Korthak strike team would have killed him immediately, rather than risk a close-quarters fight with a superior opponent. "Commander Roth," said the team leader, removing her helmet to reveal a scarred human face marked by years of warfare. "I'm Colonel Dana Worth, Earth Defense Forces. We need to talk." Roth could have killed 3 of them before their weapons could inflict serious damage, but something in the woman's voice made him pause. She spoke without fear or hatred, addressing him as one professional soldier to another. In 3,000 years of conquest, no prey species had ever shown him such calm respect. "You have invaded my quarters and threatened my life. What could we possibly discuss?" "The planet killer fleet heading for Mars colony. 3 million civilians live there, Commander. Men, women, and children who never fired a shot at your people." Roth's secondary hearts skipped a beat. How could humans know about the doomsday? Weapons? Those deployment orders were classified at the highest levels of Korthak military command, unless someone within the Empire had leaked the information. "I know nothing of such weapons," he lied automatically. Colonel Worth activated a holographic display showing intercepted Korthak communications, order codes, fleet movements, weapon specifications, all presented with perfect clarity. Human intelligence capabilities were far more advanced than anyone had suspected. "We know everything, Commander. The question is whether you're going to help us save innocent lives or if you're going to let your high command commit genocide for the sake of making a point." She dismissed her team with a gesture, leaving herself alone with a creature who could tear her apart without effort. The gesture spoke louder than words about human courage and their strange ability to trust even enemies when necessary. They talked through the night. Worth spoke of her family, killed during the first Korthak raids on human colonies. She described her world, her hopes for peace, her dreams of a future where different species could coexist without endless warfare. Her words carried a power Roth had never encountered. Genuine compassion offered to someone who had participated in the murder of her loved ones. "Why do you show mercy to an enemy?" he asked. "Because someone has to break the cycle," she replied. "If we respond to hatred with hatred, violence with violence, where does it end?" "My children are dead, Commander, but other children are still alive. Human children, Korthak children, all the species caught between our 2 empires. They deserve better than eternal war." Her words hit him like physical blows. Children. The Korthak had no concept of protecting young outside their immediate family groups. Yet this human spoke of caring for offspring of species she had never met, including the children of her enemies. When dawn came, Worth's team returned to extract her. She stood to leave, then turned back with an expression Roth couldn't interpret. You spared that hospital ship on Luna. My brother was among the wounded you saved. Thank you for showing me that some Korthaks still remember honor. She left him with intelligence data about the planet-killer fleet and a choice that would define his future. Roth sat alone in his quarters, staring at tactical displays that showed millions of human civilians going about their daily lives, unaware that death approached from the void. The decision crystallized 3 days later during the Battle of Luna. His forces had surrounded a damaged human hospital ship carrying wounded from both sides of the conflict. Standard doctrine demanded its immediate destruction to prevent enemy reinforcements and maintain tactical advantage. Roth's finger hovered over the firing command as he watched through sensor feeds. Human medical staff worked frantically in the ship's corridors, treating injured soldiers without regard for species or allegiance. A human surgeon operated on a wounded Korthak warrior while enemy forces surrounded her vessel. A Korthak medic, captured during the fighting, worked alongside human doctors to save lives from both sides. "Sir, we have targeting lock on the medical vessel," his weapons officer reported. "Awaiting your command." The moment stretched like an eternity. 3,000 years of Korthak military tradition demanded he follow orders without question. High Command expected swift, brutal efficiency in eliminating enemy assets. His own officers waited for confirmation of their superiors' absolute loyalty to the Empire. Instead, Roth opened communication channels to the hospital ship and transmitted safe passage coordinates through the Korthak blockade. All ships, stand. Down. Allow the medical vessel to reach human lines unharmed. Silence filled the bridge as his crew processed this unprecedented order. His second-in-command, a veteran warrior named Korath, stepped forward with confusion written across his scarred features. "Sir, High Command specifically ordered the destruction of all enemy vessels in this sector." "High Command isn't here," Roth replied. "I am, and I will not fire on healers who treat our wounded." The hospital ship escaped under Korthak protection, its human crew transmitting gratitude messages as they reached safety. But the damage to Roth's military career was already done. Word of his insubordination reached High Command within hours, carried by loyal officers who couldn't understand their commander's apparent madness. The response was swift and brutal. Roth found himself relieved of command, his battle group transferred. To more reliable officers, his personal honor guard replaced with troops loyal to traditional Korthak values. Worse, he learned that his example had inspired similar acts of mercy among other commanders throughout the fleet. Military discipline was breaking down as individual warriors began questioning orders that targeted civilians or medical facilities. Some commanders reported entire units refusing to carry out genocidal attacks against defenseless populations. The Empire's perfect war machine was developing a conscience, and High Command blamed Roth for introducing this dangerous weakness. His execution order arrived with the morning reports. He was to be terminated for treason, his name erased from military records, his family stripped of honor and cast out from Korthak society. The charges were specific, showing mercy to enemies, disobeying direct orders, and inspiring disloyalty among Imperial forces. As Korthak's security forces approached his quarters, Roth made a decision that would have been unthinkable just months ago. He activated an emergency communication channel and transmitted a message to Colonel Worth's command frequency. "This is Roth, former commander of the 47th Battle Group. I have intelligence about the Planet Killer Fleet's approach vector and deployment timeline. I also have a proposal that could end this war without genocide." The response came within minutes, encrypted and brief. "Coordinates attached. Come alone." He looked around his quarters one final time, taking in the trophies of 100 conquered worlds, the ceremonial weapons of 12 fallen enemies, the honors awarded for 3 millennia of faithful service to the Empire. All of it would be meaningless if the Korthak proceeded with their plans to exterminate humanity. As security forces breached his outer door, Roth escaped through maintenance shafts toward the shuttle bay. Behind him, he left not just his old life, but his entire understanding of what it meant to be strong. Ahead lay uncertainty, probable death, and the slim possibility that two species could find a better way to resolve their differences than mutual annihilation. For the first time in his life, Commander Roth was choosing hope over conquest. The galaxy would never be the same. The abandoned mining station drifted in the debris field between Mars and Jupiter, its hull scarred by decades of micrometeorite impacts and solar radiation. Inside the main conference chamber, the most unlikely alliance in galactic history was taking shape around a holographic display showing both human and Korthak fleet positions. General Dana Worth had risen through the ranks since their first meeting, her hair now streaked with premature gray from the stress of commanding humanity's desperate defense. Across from her sat Roth, no longer bearing the insignia of Korthak military rank, his ceremonial armor replaced with plain battle gear that marked him as an outcast from his own society. Between them floated tactical displays showing the approaching Doomsday Fleet, massive bioships carrying weapons capable of cracking planets. The timeline was brutal. Mars colony had perhaps 2 weeks before the planet killers arrived, and human defenses couldn't hope to stop such overwhelming firepower. "Your intelligence confirms our worst fears," Worth said, studying the fleet composition data Roth had provided. 12 planet killer ships, each one capable of sterilizing an entire world. Even if we concentrated every human vessel in Sol's system, we couldn't penetrate their escort formations. "Traditional tactics will not work," Roth agreed. "But I propose something that has never been attempted in galactic history. A joint operation between our species, targeting not just this fleet but the source of Korthak aggression itself." Worth leaned forward with interest. Behind her, human officers exchanged glances of skepticism and hope in equal measure. The idea of cooperating with their primary enemy seemed impossible, yet desperate times called for desperate measures. "What do you have in mind?" Roth activated a star chart showing the Korthak home system, heavily fortified installations surrounding a world that had launched 1,000 conquests. "While your forces engage the planet killer fleet, a strike team penetrates the Empire's core worlds and eliminates the high command structure. Without central leadership, Korthak military operations would collapse into individual unit actions." "You're talking about decapitation strategy," observed Colonel Park, Worth's tactical advisor. "But the Korthak homeworld is the most heavily defended system in known space. It would be suicide." "Not if the attacking force includes Korthak vessels with proper authorization codes," Roth replied. "I have contacted other commanders who share my doubts about the Empire's current path. They are few, but positioned at key points throughout the fleet structure. The plan was audacious beyond anything attempted in military history. A coordinated rebellion within Korthak ranks, timed to coincide with human defensive operations, targeting the very heart of the Empire that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 millennia. Success would require perfect timing, absolute trust between former enemies, and courage that went beyond mere military valor. "How many Korthak commanders can you guarantee?" Worth asked. 7 battle groups have confirmed participation. Perhaps a dozen more remain undecided. It's not enough to guarantee victory, but sufficient to create chaos within our command structure. Worth studied the tactical projections, weighing impossible odds against the certain death of billions if they did. Nothing. The mathematics were brutal, but the alternative was extinction. We do this. We're betting everything on trust between species that have been killing each other for months. One betrayal, one moment of doubt, and both our civilizations die. Then, we must ensure there is no betrayal, Roth replied. I propose mixed crews on all vessels. Human and Korthak personnel working together, sharing the risks and the potential rewards equally. The preparations took 8 days, 8 days of desperate cooperation as former enemies learned to work as allies. Human engineers studied Korthak, bioship technology, while Korthak technicians adapted to human computer systems. Communication protocols had to be established between species with different languages, different tactical philosophies, different concepts of military honor. The most difficult challenge was cultural. Human crews valued innovation and flexible thinking, while Korthak warriors respected hierarchy and absolute obedience. Somehow they had to find common ground that allowed both species to contribute their strengths without canceling each other out. The breakthrough came when a human communications specialist named Rodriguez and a young Korthak warrior named Veth discovered they shared similar experiences. Both had lost family members in the early stages of the war. Both had joined the military seeking revenge. Both had come to realize that vengeance offered no real satisfaction, only the promise of endless suffering. Their friendship became a model for cooperation throughout the mixed fleet. Humans learned to appreciate Korthak's strength and determination. Korthak warriors discovered human creativity and adaptability. Most importantly, both species found they could trust each other when facing shared dangers. The final battle began, at two separate locations simultaneously. Human forces engaged the planet killer fleet at the edge of Sol's system, drawing Korthak attention while the Joint Strike Force approached the Empire's homeworld through carefully chosen hyperspace routes. Fighting at Mars was brutal beyond description. Human ships, outnumbered 10 to 1, used every trick they had learned during months of desperate warfare. They coordinated attacks with mechanical precision, sacrificed damaged vessels to protect others, and fought with the desperate courage of defenders protecting their last sanctuary. Meanwhile, the Joint Strike Force approached the Korthak homeworld using authorization codes provided by rebel commanders. The deception held until they reached the inner system, where massive bio-fortresses challenged their approach with weapons that could vaporize entire fleets. "All ships, this is General Worth," her voice echoed through communication channels, connecting human and Korthak vessels. "Today we fight not as separate species, but as allies united by a common cause. The future of both our civilizations depends on what we accomplish here." The assault on the Korthak homeworld defied every principle of military logic. Human ships, designed for speed and maneuverability, darted between massive Korthak biofortresses like insects attacking giants. Korthak rebel vessels used their superior firepower to punch holes in defensive formations, creating openings for human strike craft to exploit. The coordination was magnificent. Human tactical computers processed targeting data from Korthak sensors. Korthak warriors provided close-quarters combat expertise when boarding actions became necessary. Both species shared intelligence, ammunition, and even crew members as the battle raged across multiple orbital platforms. Roth found himself commanding a mixed squadron of human destroyers and Korthak assault ships, leading the final push toward the High Command Citadel. Around him, the bridge crew worked with seamless efficiency, despite representing two completely different military traditions. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from the orbital defense platforms," reported Lieutenant Chen, a human communications officer. "They're requesting terms for their garrisons. Sir, 3 Korthak battle groups are requesting permission to join our assault," added Veth, the young Korthak warrior who had become Roth's tactical advisor. "They say the High Command has lost the mandate of strength." Roth smiled, an expression that would have terrified enemies just months ago, but now conveyed satisfaction at seeing his plan succeed. The Empire's rigid command structure was collapsing as individual commanders chose cooperation over conquest. The final assault on the High Command Citadel required both species working in perfect harmony. Human demolition experts guided Korthak warriors through the station's defensive systems. Korthak's strength opened passages that human agility could exploit. When they finally reached the command center, they found the Empire's leadership waiting with weapons drawn for a final stand. The battle was brief but decisive. High Command had ruled through fear and tradition for 3,000 years. but they had never faced an enemy that combined human innovation with Korthak determination. Their defeat marked the end of an empire, and the beginning of something unprecedented in galactic history. As the last shots echoed through the command center, Roth and Worth stood together among the ruins of the old order. Around them, human and Korthak personnel worked side by side to secure the facility and establish communication with the planet-killer fleet still threatening Mars. All Korthak vessels, this is former Commander Roth speaking from the High Command. Citadel, he transmitted on all military frequencies. The war is over. Stand down your weapons and prepare for new orders. The response was immediate. Throughout Korthak space, battle groups reported ceasing hostilities and requesting instructions. From the new leadership, the planet-killer fleet halted its approach to Mars, its commanders uncertain how to proceed without direction from their superiors. What happens now? Worth asked as they watched the galaxy's balance of power shift in real time. Now we build something better, Roth replied. An alliance based not on conquest, but on mutual protection. A federation where strength serves to defend rather than dominate. The negotiations took months, but the framework they established would endure for generations. The Korthak Empire dissolved, replaced by independent worlds that chose their own destinies. Humanity expanded beyond Sol's system, but as explorers and traders rather than conquerors. Most importantly, both species committed to defending any civilization threatened by aggressive expansion. Years later, Ambassador Roth stood beside General Worth in the Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, watching representatives from dozens of species debate peacefully instead of settling disputes through warfare. The transformation hadn't been easy, and not everyone had embraced the new order willingly. But they had proven something that philosophers had debated for millennia, that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the courage to protect others. The galaxy's former apex predators had found their greatest victory not in conquest, but in choosing to serve something greater than themselves. Do you ever regret it? Worth asked during a quiet moment between sessions. Giving up everything. You were raised to believe. Roth considered the question while watching young humans and Korthak working together on a joint scientific project. These new generations would grow up seeing cooperation as natural, partnership as strength, and diversity as an advantage rather than a threat to overcome. I regret only that it took so long to understand what your species tried to teach us, he replied. That the strongest warriors are those who fight to protect rather than to conquer. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson about the true nature of power. It wasn't found in the ability to destroy worlds or subjugate civilizations. Real strength lay in the choice to use power responsibly, to lift others up rather than tear them down, and to build something greater than any single species could achieve alone. The Korthak had been the galaxy's strongest race by every measure of military might. But they had discovered something stronger than physical power, more enduring than any empire, more valuable than conquest itself. They had learned to be heroes, instead of predators, and in doing so, they had found their true destiny among the stars.